This is 5 Live Formula One with Jack Nichols.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the third and final practice session ahead of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, the second round of the Formula One World Championship of 2023. Thank you very much for joining us for this final hour of running, just coming up to 4:30 local time in Saudi Arabia, before qualifying gets underway a little later on this evening in 3.5 hours from now. And again, you'll be able to hear it here on the BBC Sport website. Alongside me today, we still have the BBC's chief F1 writer, Andrew Benson. And we have someone who I was trying to decide how to introduce, and then I decided she needs no introduction. It's Alice Powell. Thank you very much for joining us, Alice. How are you doing?
Too polite. I'm very good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I didn't know whether to get stuck in with, 2014 Formula Renault Asia champion or second
now
in
you're
W
making me
Series,
feel really, really
all
old.
of these. There were so many
It's a
options.
long time ago.
I got a little bit scared of all the different options, so went for.
I'm not scary. I promise. I promise.
So second race of the season. Verstappen and Red Bull looked so strong in the opening round, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. But Aston Martin as well. They've also looked pretty handy, especially old Alonso. I don't know if I'm going to get shouted at for calling him old.
Yeah, you think you feel old,
yeah, exactly. But
imagine how he feels.
Red Bull so dominant. They've had a good start to testing here yesterday, but Aston Martin, as I said as well, are looking pretty handy. And a shock of the day yesterday is probably the Alpines being up there as well.
Yeah, Alpine really difficult to get a read on them in Bahrain. What with Gasly starting at the back of the grid and Ocon trying to collect all of the penalties, but in the end yesterday they were fourth and sixth quickest with Ocon and Gasly in the second practice session. Verstappen was fastest on a 29.6, 2/10 quicker than Fernando Alonso, with Sergio Perez in third. Andrew Benson got excited isn't quite the right word, but sort of there was some encouraging long run data yesterday, but then overnight people have kind of come out and said, well, actually everyone was just saving their tyres. That's why the pace was the same for everybody. What's your sort of assessment on that?
Well, that's what Max Verstappen said. But of course, that's not going to work that way in the race, is it? They're all going to be. They're not. I mean, they will be saving tyres because they're Pirellis, but they won't be going at the same speed. To be fair, the long runs, they're not perhaps quite as close as I thought they were in the sort of first 5 or 6 lap snapshot yesterday, but they're not too bad. So look at Verstappen and Sainz, for example. As I said yesterday, in fact, they're both doing sort of average 35.2. Verstappen quicker than Sainz and over a longer run, but so not that Ferrari not a million miles off, and the same on the mediums. Alonso and Perez 10th and a half apart, something like that. So I mean, look, we all know Red Bull are going to win.
Oh no, don't spoil it for everybody.
But I think we don't know how close the others are going to be to them. I think what I do know for sure is Ferrari looked slow yesterday because they had their engines turned down. Now I'm extrapolating that they had their engines turned down because they're in a world of pain with their engines at the moment. Leclerc's got a 10-place grid penalty because of 2 electronic control units failures in Bahrain, which has necessitated a third, which is already over his limit for the season here. And Ferrari changed the engines on both cars ahead of this weekend for precautionary reasons, they say. But then when you add in the fact that they ran the engines turned down yesterday, that all points to more difficulties on their engines than they're kind of admitting at the moment at Ferrari, which is not a good place for them to be in race 2.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Ferrari this season, because obviously the reliability issues, I mean, they had sort of reliability problems last year, but it's not as simple as just make an engine more reliable.
No, and they keep changing the stuff, so they keep changing, saying this will fix it. But it's just a nightmare. And you could see Charles's reaction when he got out of the car at Bahrain at the side of the track. I almost looked at him and thought he's thinking, please, not another year like last year, or even sort of the year before as well. It's a shame because it was really, really nice to have Ferrari up there fighting where they should be at the front end, challenging Red Bull. Okay, you could say we've got Aston Martin, but will they keep this pace up for the entirety of the season? Who knows? But to have Ferrari up there fighting, I think I'd love to see that. From a child, I'm a big Ferrari fan, but I think that Ferrari are meant to be at the sharp end of Formula One, and this is just not good to see them with all these issues.
No, absolutely not. The track has gone green. The session has begun. For those of you wanting to sync up, well, I'll do it in a second because Karun's talking some stuff on the telly, so I'll do it in a moment. But no one's heading out onto the circuit just yet. Charles Leclerc is at the wheel of his Ferrari, just getting strapped in before heading out onto the circuit in a few moments' time. One interesting thing I just saw, Andrew, and I might be throwing you under the bus here, Jerome D'Ambrosio sitting at the back of the Mercedes garage in the sort of wolfish position. Now, he's a former F1 driver back in 2011-ish, 12, 13.
He drove the Lotus, as it was called at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was. Was it
the Renault?
I thought he was in the Virgin, wasn't he?
Was he?
Wasn't he Virgin
Yeah,
and
he was
Manor?
in the Virgin, but you're right. Before that, he was.
Did he race it?
At Lotus. No, he didn't race the Lotus, but
Okay.
the Manor he was in for sure. But yeah, he was definitely at the Lotus at some point.
Yeah. Well, he is now part of Mercedes. I thought he was just sort of doing junior driver sort of managing, but he's sitting in like a kind of Toto Wolffy position right there.
So the way Toto Wolff explained it yesterday was that, people, eagle-eyed Formula One watchers will know that Jerome D'Ambrosio not only was at the Bahrain test and the Bahrain Grand Prix with Mercedes wearing civvies, but he was also part of Susie Wolff's Venturi team. In fact, he ran it underneath Susie when she was promoted from team principal to CEO.
In Formula E.
In Formula E, he became team principal. And Wolff explained that D'Ambrosio at the moment has taken over the responsibilities on driver development that James Vowles had as part of his remit before he left for Williams. But he did say that there may be more things for him in the future. So it does sound rather like, the sound and look rather like they're grooming him to be in a very senior position within that team. Wouldn't want to say he's taking over from Toto Wolff yet, because there's no sign at this stage of Toto Wolff going anywhere. In fact, he made the point in Bahrain that he definitely wasn't going anywhere in the foreseeable future. But it sounds like D'Ambrosio is a fixture there.
Interesting. He did 2011 with Marussia, and then he did do one race in 2012 with Lotus.
There you go. You see, you should trust me.
No, but I don't remember. What was that?
Trust myself more.
So why did he do that one race for Lotus?
I can't remember. I was more focused on the front of the field back then.
That might have been the Grosjean ban.
Yes, could have been. Exactly that.
Maybe
that's exactly what it was.
Yes, filled in for Romain Grosjean. Right. For those of you sinkers, we've got 57 minutes and 2:10 seconds left on the clock. Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso, the two drivers out on circuit at the moment.
Just the whole Grosjean ban thing has just got me thinking about something that I was already thinking about before, which is like the Grosjean ban came about because he triggered the crash at the start of the 2012 Belgian Grand Prix, which was the latest in a series of incidents that led to Mark Webber calling him a first-lap nutcase. And that crash was one of the reasons why Fernando Alonso didn't win the World Championship with Ferrari that year, when he should have done. And he didn't, through no fault of his own. And the fact that he didn't win the World Championship with Ferrari and they kept giving him a inferior car.
Hang on, sorry. So Grosjean...
I'm getting there.
No, but I just said Grosjean, because he crashed into Alonso didn't win the title.
He crashed into Hamilton, and the two of them crashed into Alonso, and he retired from the race.
First
and so that's what we're saying is the reason Alonso didn't win the title.
First of two reasons, actually. The other time was being taken out by Raikkonen at the start in Japan. But anyway... that led to Fernando Alonso getting frustrated with Ferrari because they couldn't provide him with a competitive car. He lost confidence that they would ever be able to provide him with a competitive car, and that led him to make what people thought was a rash and ill-considered decision to go to McLaren. Point being, he got frustrated and left Ferrari, and having given up on their ability to do that. And I was watching the Villeneuve-Peroni documentary 3 days ago, and that exact same thing happened to Gilles Villeneuve, another generational talent who got frustrated with Ferrari and was going to leave at the end of that year had he not been killed, to go to McLaren. And I fear for Charles Leclerc is the point, that he's going to be another...
This has gone a long way from Jerome D'Ambrosio.
Hyper-talented driver who Ferrari just can't deliver for him, and in the end he just gets frustrated and decides to leave. He's given no indication that's what he wants to do at the moment. But you could see how, and Alice's remark about Bahrain is something that I had also thought you saw it happen to Leclerc last year. You saw it really start to weigh on him last year, the way that season imploded. And I hope it doesn't work out like this for him, because he deserves to be a world champion, and it would be lovely if he won it with Ferrari, for all those reasons that you were talking about, Alice. But I do worry that his career at Ferrari is going the same way as Villeneuve's did and Alonso's did.
Well, that's the thing. How long do you sit and stay because you're at Ferrari? You go, oh, do you know what? I'm racing for an incredible team, one of the teams with the most history in Formula One. Do you just stay there? You don't just stay there for that reason if they're not getting results. And we saw Lando Norris getting ready to get in the car as well. He's another one. Does he stay and hang around? He's got this great relationship with McLaren, but they're not delivering for him. So surely it's about time he sort of considers, you know what, I should be in a top level team. And I'm sure, like Charles, Lando will really be in demand with teams like Red Bull. We've seen how brutal they could be. They could decide, you know, halfway through the year, Perez is not pulling his socks up. Well, we'll just snap one of these guys up.
Yeah, it's interesting. Norris for me is nothing's happening on track. Everybody, Stroll and Alonso have done an in-store lap on some hard tyres, so something did happen, but now it's not. So we'll get stuck into this, because I was thinking this the other day, actually, Andrew. Lando Norris to me is a no-brainer for Audi, right? Audi should be coming in 2026, and should, you know, if I was Andreas Seidel, you know, the guy who rates Lando Norris really highly, I would be trying to get Norris. Audi, have they got like a shot at Leclerc?
Well, I was trying to bet someone the other day that Lando Norris would go to Audi in 2026, really? And he said, I'm not taking that bet, because he thought the same thing. But yeah, I mean, Red Bull is another team. Red Bull have made they've not hidden at all their admiration for Norris. So Alice is absolutely right. I can see him being interested in going there, and them being interested in him. Because Perez works for Red Bull at the moment because he's not a threat to Verstappen and all the rest of it. But you could see why they would be interested in Norris if for that car once they've dispensed with Sergio Perez in a couple of years' time.
Well, they've looked at him before, didn't they?
Exactly. They tried to get him right early on, before Norris was even a regular Formula 1 driver, I think. Yeah. So yeah, and Audi, you're absolutely right, Jack. They're going to be a major player in 2026. Lots of people are going to be interested in going there. We'll have to see how much progress Alfa Romeo / Sauber make in the next couple of years, because obviously there's no miracles in Formula 1, despite what Aston Martin have achieved this year. So if Sauber is still messing around in the midfield, then that seat won't be quite so attractive as it might be, even though it is Audi. But yes, that's another major player that's going to be interesting to people like Norris and, as you say, like Leclerc. Because, I mean, the rumours last year were that, and I have no idea whether this is true or not, but there were rumours that began to gather pace last year, was that Toto Wolff had already spoken to Charles Leclerc about potentially him moving to Mercedes once Lewis Hamilton retires, which looks like it's going to be in at least a couple of years, because they keep saying he's definitely going to do a new contract despite all the problems Mercedes are going through at the moment. And if you were Toto Wolff and you were looking for someone to replace Lewis Hamilton when he retires, Charles Leclerc would absolutely be the number one driver on the list, assuming Max Verstappen's not available.
Just really quickly, that De Vries car, the whole of the back was off it, right? That was just the tub.
Looked like it. Obviously issues when they've done so they always fire up in the morning. They'll always do a fire up. And actually, we can touch back on Ferrari, because I saw an interview saying that they found Charles's issue, or they noticed his issue on the fire up before the race.
Charles's issue is Ferrari, I think. That's the.
So yeah, we'll try and find out what's happening there with the AlphaTauri, because that's not good news, because I know not many cars are going out on track, as Oscar Piastri does a practice start out the pit lane, and it'll be the only car on track at the moment, because this is an important session, the one just before quali.
Yeah, it's not like the engine cover was off and there was a bit of work going on, or a bit of a something. It was basically just the tub of Nick De Vries's car. Oscar Piastri, who won the Formula 2 feature race at this track, and they're changing De Vries's power unit, so he won't be participating in free practice 3. So that's a shame for the Dutchman.
And he's the only, I think he's the only driver that's not actually been around this circuit at all prior to this weekend, because you've had Oscar that's done F2, Sargent raced here in F2, Hulkenberg last year. So, yeah, I think that's pretty worrish for him because, he's the driver on the grid that needs the experience around this circuit.
So, Nick de Vries, who finished yesterday's session down in 17th quickest, he was 2/10 slower than Yuki Tsunoda, his teammate. Tsunoda finished 13th, and Piastri, the only car out on circuit at the moment. In fact, he's just been joined by Norris and Hulkenberg. They've all gone out on the medium tyre as Piastri comes up towards turn 22 on his outlap at the moment. Ocon in the Alpine leaves the pit lane, also on a set of the soft tyres now as well. And, I didn't know that. Valtteri Bottas in his 202nd start, well, in theory, surpassing Jean Alesi to become one of the 20 most experienced F1 drivers ever. Doesn't count with all these new races, though. You know, but Alesi's day, there were 15 races a season.
That's the thing, you look back at history, someone like Carlos Reutemann, who was around for 10 years or more, he only did about 100 Grand Prix, it's like...
Yeah. I always look at Carlos Reutemann's stats as well, Benny. Me and you are the same on that front.
Just an example.
Gasly out on circuit now in the other Alpine, and Max Verstappen on the hard tyres. And they come down through the final corner at turn 27 for Piastri. Sorry, this is Norris just starting his lap. No, he's coming in the pits. So Norris returns to the pit lane, just doing an install lap in that McLaren. Piastri is doing a lap at the moment. As I say, Verstappen out on the hard tyres. He's got an extra set of hard tyres compared to most of the drivers in the field. So I imagine we'll see him, and I would imagine the two Aston Martins going out on the hard tyres in this session to use up a set. Lewis Hamilton just getting lowered down off the jacks and now heading out on a new set of the soft tyres. Same is true of his teammate George Russell as he makes his way to the end of the pit lane. Across the line comes Nico Hulkenberg to start a lap. He's on the medium tyre as he comes through turns 1, 2 and then 3. The left-hand sweeper that then leads him down to the sort of chicane at turns 4, 5 and 6, and then through the sweeping corners that take him to the long banked hairpin left-hander at turn 13, which sends him back the other way up the Corniche, or down the Corniche I suppose, because he's then heading south with the Red Sea on his right-hand side. And we've got 47 minutes and 18 seconds to go. Your thoughts on this circuit, Alice?
I tell you, it's one that I would love to drive. It's street circuits, people have different views, but I love circuits, and I'd like to think you guys agree, and then most other drivers hopefully agree with me, the ones that aren't forgiving.
Yeah.
So, nothing against Paul Ricard, that circuit, but, it's...
You don't mean that.
I just love circuits like this, like Monaco. We've got this circuit, we've got old school circuits like the Zolder kind of circuits, Zandvoort that's actually on the calendar, that are just, they're no forgiving. If you make a mistake, you're in the wall, you're in the gravel, you're in the barrier, and I think we should have more of these circuits, because then we can get rid of these stupid track limits, which just, quite honestly, just do my head in, quite frankly. So, a circuit that I love, a fast circuit, one of my... loves is a fast circuit, and this certainly is a very fast circuit.
Yeah, so a few changes made this year with sort of sight lines and stuff, but there's still a lot of blind corners out there. Turn 22 a little slower still, but still a corner that a lot of drivers were getting wrong yesterday. Pierre Gasly's about to come across the line, potentially to go quicker than Hulkenberg here, and he does, actually by 1.7 seconds, so that's a quick lap on the softs for Pierre Gasly, a 1 minute 30.7. Yesterday he did a 1 minute 30.1, so about 6/10 slower than he managed yesterday. The sound you can hear now is the Mercedes of George Russell coming through the first sector, heading down towards turn 13 now, and he does the fastest first sector of anyone, quicker than Pierre Gasly, although Hamilton now goes quicker in the first sector as the two Mercedes look to set some competitive lap times. Yesterday, Russell was 5th fastest on a 30.0. Again, I don't think we'll see lap times quite as quick as this, quite this early in the session. Russell is now coming up towards the slowed left-hander at turn 22, but still pretty quick, still arriving at over 200 miles an hour, and down a few gears and throwing it into the left. And now heading towards the final part of the lap, and Russell is quicker than Hamilton in the middle sector by a couple of tenths of a second. Turn 27 coming up now, onto the brakes, into the final corner on the track and out across the line. And George Russell's first lap is a 1 minute 30.476, so about 4 tenths slower than he managed yesterday evening on the soft tyres. Hamilton slots into second place, those two separated by just a couple of hundredths of a second, a 30.4 for both of them. 2 tenths quicker than Gasly in the Alpine, 2 tenths quicker than Verstappen, but Verstappen's out on the hard tyres at the moment for Red Bull. Ocon, Bottas, Joe, Hülkenberg and Piastri, the 9 drivers to have set the lap time so far. Sergio Perez is just having tyres attached to his Red Bull before he heads out on the circuit. Only Perez, Sargent, De Vries, who we know won't be out in this session, and Yuki Tsunoda. Those are the only 3 drivers who are yet to go out so far. Charles Leclerc is just coming into the final corner now. He's on the medium tyre, going past the 2 Alpines who were slow, and Leclerc not really near the apex at turn 27 there. And as I say, on the medium tyre, and he comes through to go 8 tenths slower than George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. But again, maybe still running with the engine turned down, Ferrari.
Yeah, they could be. I mean, they need to play it safe, really, because it's not a good start to the season for them at all, and to be making such big changes and having those penalties so early on when we've got a long way left to go. Okay, this is you're out, and you're flat out for 70% of this lap. I think that's the figure that I saw yesterday. So those poor little engines are going to be screaming their heads off, and yeah, with Ferrari already having issues, I wouldn't be surprised if they are running it down just to be safe, because they need to be safe, because they need to get both cars to finish in the points tomorrow.
On hashtag BBC F1, Kirk says, always love it when Benson comes out with a detailed stat about an F1 driver that no one else has heard of.
I was going to say I've never heard of it, but I didn't, in case. I didn't want to insult him.
I've heard of Carlos Reutemann. I'll say that. I've heard of Carlos Reutemann. But who's the most obscure F1 driver of all time, Andrew? Who could you say a name of and we'd be like, nah, no idea? Come on, have you got one in your back pocket?
That's not my top subject. You want someone like Paul Fernley or who gets ex-editor of Motoring News, or even Matt Bishop. They're really
Bishop,
good on
Matt
the completely obscurist history stuff. I'm more of a sort of glory boy when it comes to history.
Yeah, exactly. Villeneuve you're interested in, Senna, maybe a bit of Piquet if pushed.
Maybe.
Maybe. Esteban Ocon goes up to 4th quickest. Now Verstappen goes fastest on the hard tyre. A 1 minute 29.882 for Verstappen. A couple of tenths clear of Gasly on the soft, who did a cool down lap and then another run. And I think the Mercedes are doing the same. They've just done a cool down and are now pushing again. Alex Albon in the Williams, he goes up to 6th fastest, 1.1 seconds away from Verstappen, and they looked solid enough yesterday, did the Williams team. Well, Albon actually ended the second session 14th fastest, but I think he might have not done a lap on the softs. I think that lap time might have been on the mediums. I could be wrong.
So on Williams, Jack, James Vowles, the new team principal, was saying yesterday that, yeah, they're looking okay this weekend, but the car, he was saying, it's showing very similar characteristics to last year's car. In other words, there's going to be some tracks that are good for it and some tracks that are really not good for it. Basically, it hasn't got enough downforce, so it goes quite well at high-speed tracks, and this is one of the tracks where you would expect it to go well at. Whereas obviously there's going to be tracks coming up, Barcelona, Monaco and so on, where it won't be so competitive.
That always feels like quite an interesting trait to me, because it's not like, because normally the problem is inefficient downforce, right? Like that's the sort of issue. So it's weird that so a car that's slow, at one track is kind of slow everywhere, whether it's low downforce or not, because they have to have the downforce on to get what grip they can get. So it's always interesting that Williams kind of scenario. It was similar back in the day, wasn't it, with who was it that was always strong? Force India were always really good at Spa, weren't they? Giancarlo Fisichella taking pole in 2009. Hamilton improves, found a bit of time to go quicker than Russell. So Hamilton now third fastest, fourth for Russell. 3/10 though, back from Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. Ocon did another lap and didn't improve, so he's 6/10 away from Verstappen, a 10th away from the Mercedes, and 4/10 away from his teammate Gasly. But yeah, that Alpine pace still looking pretty good.
It's looking good, but Max has done his lap time on the hard tyre, so it's a bit showing off there, really. You know, you've got Gasly in the softs and Hamilton, Russell, Ocon on softs as well. Leclerc's just popped up on the medium tyre. But yeah, they'll be looking at that ball going, okay, we're not too far from Red Bull, until they see that Verstappen did it on the hard tyre.
Yeah. And he's going for another lap here, Verstappen, actually, as he comes through turns 4, 5, and then 6. Gasly's on quite a quick lap. He's just done the fastest first sector of anyone. The AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda is coming out of the final corner now. Tsunoda is on the medium tyre, so as a result, he goes slowest in 15th place at the moment, 2.3 seconds away from Verstappen. Perez is starting a lap now on the softs. Gasly through the middle sector is almost 2/10 up on Verstappen's time. And this will be Gasly's second timed, no, maybe third timed lap, I think, actually, isn't it? Yeah, third timed lap on these soft tyres. He's now on the blast towards turn 27. It's the Alpine that you can hear as he goes down to third gear, turns it into the left and comes out across the line, and he improves, but he doesn't go quicker than Verstappen. He pretty much matches Verstappen's time, doesn't improve actually at all in the final sector. Verstappen is improving though. He's heading up towards the final corner of turn 27. Carlos Sainz has just been on the radio to say he's got a lot of derating, and Perez meanwhile is a quarter of a second up on Verstappen after the first 2 sectors, but Perez is out on the soft tyre. Verstappen across the line improves to a 1 minute 29.746. Quickest lap time we saw yesterday was a 29.6, so Verstappen's only a 10th off his fastest time of the weekend, but he's on the hard tyre. Here comes Perez. Does he go quicker than Verstappen? He does, by 0.3 of a second. So that's the fastest lap of the weekend from Sergio Perez, a 1 minute 29.417. And it's Red Bull 1-2. Albon jumps up into 5th place on those soft tyres. So as we were discussing, a reasonable performance there from the Williams. Goes ahead of the 2 Mercedes at the moment. Russell is on an improved lap. Leclerc and Hülkenberg are the only 2 drivers in the pits at the moment.
I mean, that's an impressive time for Verstappen. But I'm just looking at this timing board, timing sheet, whatever you want to call it. And who would you... It's hard to pick who's the bottom team at the moment, because you've got the Williams that's popped up in P5 with Albon. Okay, you've got the AlphaTauris that are down. Yuki's only on the medium tyre at the moment. Hülkenberg, we saw his incredible pace on the softs yesterday. So it's hard to sort of say which team is at the bottom if you're going by these times that we've seen so far this weekend.
Well, shall I tell you why it's hard? Because if you look, for example, at the sort of best lap times that the sort of back of the grid teams did in Bahrain last week, a couple of weeks ago, the slowest 4 teams are separated by less than a 10th of a second. So you've got McLaren 1.673 seconds off the pace, AlphaTauri 1.692 seconds off the pace, Alfa Romeo 1.735 seconds off the pace, and Williams 1.753 seconds off the pace.
So then we could say we've got 4 teams that are at the back.
Yeah.
So obviously the concern is that McLaren are one of them.
Yeah. Well, Lando Norris
why.
I didn't realise he had 6 pit stops in Bahrain. I mean, that's a lot of pit stops. I mean, are we going to hear from Hamilton?
Copy, yep. Very busy now.
Hamilton getting traffic out there.
Yeah, waving his hands about in frustration.
Even Pirelli didn't anticipate the 6 stopper, I don't know.
No. I suppose you could say the only race that was worse was for Esteban Ocon, who seemed to enjoy racking up penalties. And I was told that the mechanic that touched the front wing when he made that change was allegedly 0.2 seconds too early.
Really?
Apparently so. So I don't know who judges that with the stopwatch, but
he was also 0.1 kilometre an hour over the pit lane speed limit.
They were out to get him, weren't they? Hamilton is on another push lap at the moment. Thank you for those of you getting in touch, giving it a go for the most obscure F1 drivers. JP saying, surely a recent forgotten F1 driver is Ralph Furman for Jordan. And that's true, actually. I very rarely think of Ralph Furman in life.
Really?
Yeah. And because he was quite, sort of modernish as well. Sort of modern British. Like, how is he not on Sky F1, honestly? Like, he's a British F1 driver within the last 30 years. How is he not? Don't get it. David King says Esteban Tuero in the Minardi in 1998. I remember Esteban Tuero.
Tarso Marquez, there's a whole load of Brazilians not very good in that era, yeah.
No, it wasn't. Tuero was Argentinian,
He's Argentinian,
wasn't he?
yeah, sorry, yeah.
Same part, same direction for us.
Yeah.
That was naughty of me, I should have known that.
That was rookie. The one I always forget who did a Grand Prix was Stefan Sarazan. Did one Grand Prix for Minardi in like 90... Well, I've committed to this. 95? 98?
Roundabout then.
Yeah, and he came out of Junsao and had that spinning crash. Have you seen that spinning crash? You were probably there.
I probably was, yeah.
You don't remember his spinning crash?
No.
He like hit the wall and just kept... I'll get it up on YouTube.
Okay. This is great radio, by the way.
Second Lesmo says, the most recent driver I can't remember is Philippe Adams, but I remember him now. Who was Philippe Adams? I don't remember.
He drove the Lotus for a couple of races in 1994.
Oh.
Just before they collapsed.
Oh. Oscar Piastri has just gone wide at turn 22. But then just carried on his way without anything too dramatic occurring.
George Russell, purple in the first sector though, on the soft tyres. He has now through turn 20.
Coming up towards the quick left-hander at 22. A tenth of a second down on Sergio Perez's time, but still finding time on these soft tyres, George Russell, that are 8 laps old now. As he comes towards the final corner, over 200 miles an hour, gets up to 205 before he gets onto the brakes. We've got a lovely tow over the line here.
Very handy tow.
The Aston Martin in front of him is Fernando Alonso, and Russell comes through and remains 5th quickest. He lost 7 tenths, or well, 6 tenths.
Some mistake somewhere, surely.
There's only that one corner in the, well, 2 corners in the final sector.
Yeah, I was going to say it was probably when he started turning the wheel, when he started to lose time. But,
yeah.
But that's interesting because in Formula 2 qualifying yesterday, everyone was just seemed to be finding time even on their second and third runs on the tyres. So a bit of a trend here, clearly. Always time to find. It just seemed that middle sector, Albon's lost time as well. He's done a green first sector, a yellow, and that's never going to be a yellow. Basically means that the driver has not improved on their best sector.
That Sarazan crash was the 1999 Brazilian Grand Prix, and it was in the race on lap 31.
I was definitely there, yeah.
You don't remember it?
No.
Look at it. I'll show you while I talk about things. We've got less than 32 minutes to go, and it is Perez quickest, Verstappen second, Gasly third, Ocon fourth, 5th is Russell, 6th is Albon, 7th is Hamilton, 8th Leclerc, 9th Sainz, 10th Norris, and then it's Stroll, Joe, Tsunoda, Piastri, Bottas, the top 15, Magnussen, Sargent, Hulkenberg, Alonso, the 19 drivers to have set a lap time. No recollection of that, Benson?
No,
he was in the bar. I reckon he was in the bar.
I don't know what I was doing, but I don't remember it.
It's a good one, though, isn't it?
It is a good one,
He just keeps spinning round.
Yeah.
Like you on the Caipirinhas, by the sounds of it. That's what it was.
Maybe that's what it was, yeah.
Maybe that's
I'm
what it was.
well known for getting on the Caipirinhas in the middle of a race. That's a joke, everybody.
Well, yeah. 31 minutes remaining. Perez quickest, Verstappen second, as I say. Verstappen has now returned to the pit lane. So has Hamilton, the 2 Ferraris of Leclerc and Sainz, the 2 Alpines of Gasly and Ocon as well. Here comes Nico Hulkenberg through, 2 seconds off the pace at the moment. Down in 18th place, Nico Hulkenberg. Logan Sargent 1.1 seconds away from Alex Albon at present. Norris goes up into 8th in the McLaren, which is kind of slightly more encouraging from them after, well, all those pit stops in Bahrain. But even aside from the pit stops, the pace wasn't particularly strong for McLaren as they kind of looked to redirect themselves, having gone the wrong way over the winter.
Yeah, I mean, Piastri as well. Steering wheel issue, and his steering wheel column, I think, was the problem, the wiring. So, I mean, that was gutting for him. Not your first Grand Prix and not being able to finish the race, as George Russell is now pushed into the garage, sitting there, taking his gloves off, getting the nice cool air from the fan. Medium tyres are coming off.
Pretty much everybody back in the pits now. Norris has just completed that lap. Tsunoda, Stroll, Hülkenberg and Alonso still out on circuit at the moment, but that's it. Benson getting in trouble for getting Brazilian and Argentinian wrong. Christopher points out that Ralph Furman was Irish and I called him British. So apologies there to Christopher and of course to Ralph Furman. And a lot of you saying Andre Lotterer for most obscure
Did he race?
driver. Yeah, he did one race in 2014.
Also at Spa.
At Spa. Also at Spa, and he didn't last the lap, did he? I think he broke down halfway down the car broke down halfway down the Kemmel Straight.
Also, the person who's nitpicking about Ralph Furman's nationality, he may have had an Irish passport, but he was born in Britain. And his father was Ralph Furman of Van Diemen, of course. So
but he raced under, I think
he did race with an Irish licence, yeah. But, you know,
so,
you can't point blank say he was Irish full
right,
stop.
Someone get his birth certificate out.
Yeah.
Needs,
exactly. Oh, yes, Retro GP. I love this guy. Hans Heyer. Do you remember this story?
Yeah, that's a good one.
He's
more famous for Le Mans, of course, Hans Heyer and touring cars.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
and his hat.
And his hat?
Yeah.
He had a famous hat?
He had a Tyrolean hat, if I remember rightly.
What, like Ken's? That was a Ken Tyrrell joke.
The famous Tyrolean Ken Tyrrell. What are you talking about?
I didn't know if that's what you called something like Tyrrellesque, was Tyrolean.
Tyrol.
I know, that's why it was a joke. But Hans Heyer, didn't he didn't qualify, but he snuck the car onto the grid anyway, and
how on earth do you?
And he just sort of decided to drive anyway. This is in 1977, and then he retired on lap 9. So he got a that was it. So he got a DNQ, did not qualify, but he did actually start. But then he DNF'd, but then he got disqualified as well because he started the race. So he did not qualify, so technically did not start, but he also did not finish, and then he got disqualified. That's good stuff. You can't beat that. You can't beat that.
No, I think he wins.
Yeah. 27 minutes and 16 seconds on the clock. Charles Leclerc out on the medium tyre, the same one he did his first 5 laps on as he come down towards the first corner. No, we haven't had a look at that the wobbly wing, Andrew, from Ferrari this weekend, but they say they're still going to sort of try and continue with it.
Well, it looks to me like the wobbly wing is the one that's on the car, because if you remember, the wobbly wing was the one with the single central support strut, and that's what Leclerc's got on the car right now. So I don't know for a fact that it's the same wing, but it was a lower downforce wing that they were using in Bahrain, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
Okay, well, it looks like it's behaving at least then.
While we're on the subject of obscure Formula 1 drivers, how about Bernie Eccleston?
Yeah, that's a good one. What did he do? Did he qualify ever?
I'm not sure. I think he might have done, maybe. I can't remember, but definitely obscure and minimal experience.
Yeah. 26 minutes and 17 seconds remaining. Perez, Verstappen, Gasly, Ocon, Russell, the top 5 at the moment. Albon, Hamilton, Norris, Leclerc and Sainz, the top 10. Stroll, Joe, Tsunoda, Piastri, Hülkenberg, the top 15. And then Bottas, Magnussen, Sargent and Alonso, the 19 drivers who have set the lap time. We're expecting most to go out on a set of soft tyres at the end of this session to do another run. So that order, I imagine, will change. James Denton says they put Ralph Furman on a roller coaster in the F1 car at Blackpool. There's a ridiculous picture of it. Ralph Furman sitting in the F1 car that they've bolted onto the Big Dipper or something. That's madness. Anyway.
It's one way to test your car, I suppose. See how wind reacts to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's covered in Flovis. It's 28.5 minutes to go. Just getting a look at Charles Leclerc doing a practice start in the pit lane. And I presume we'll get some radio after this where he will say something about it.
Hi, lost the fast shift.
Okay, copy.
lost the first shift, Charles Leclerc.
He was having clutch gearbox problems at practice starts yesterday as well, wasn't he, Leclerc?
Yeah, and he had clutch problems coming out the garage in Bahrain.
Yeah, he did, yeah. Oh, dear.
There's another one to add to the list.
Yeah, exactly. My thoughts exactly.
Stu G says Hans Heyer has the record for the most Le Mans starts without a finish.
That's not an impressive record
Apparently
to have,
he's got 12 starts and 14 DNFs. Stu says, yes, I know. Well, I don't know. How's he got 14 DNFs, Stu? 24 and a half minutes to go. Qualifying gets underway in 3 hours' time, everybody, which you can listen to here on the BBC Sport website. Well, wherever you're listening now, you'll be able to hear qualifying later on this afternoon. Gasly has backed off on this lap. He's out on a new set of soft tyres, but he's 5 seconds down in Sector 1. So he's either backed off or he's doing a prep lap as well.
I think we've seen a few drivers actually do a prep lap. So building the temperature up nice and slowly. I think Ocon is doing the exact same. So we'll eventually see him start to wind it up, I expect, a little bit more through the final sector. As we see him go through turn 26 now. Heavy on the brakes, open up the corner, early on the throttle, and down the straight to what I will guess to start his push lap, first proper push lap on this set of tyres.
That is Alice Powell with us this weekend here on BBC F1. Along with Andrew Benson, but he's always here. Across the line comes Pierre Gasly, and he's 10 seconds off on that lap, so we'll see whether he does go for a push lap now, coming down into the first couple of corners. Oh, Chris is smashing it at f1@bbc.co.uk. Apparently obscure drivers, they don't get more obscure and more niche than Scrap Thistlewaite, a driver from the 1920s with virtually no recorded history.
Not technically a Formula 1 driver, then, is
not
he?
Formula 1.
That's got to be a
accept
make-up
that.
name, surely.
But I need to know more about Scrap Thistlewaite, so I'm going to search. Can't be a real name either, but
Exactly.
yeah, exactly.
Stage name.
Yeah. Gasly is on a push lap, and he is going quickly in the middle sector now, just coming towards the left-hander of turn 22, and his middle sector is pretty strong, just a little less than a tenth slower than Max Verstappen. Sergio Perez, who's the quickest time so far. Verstappen went out on the hards in that first run. Gasly, the car bouncing underneath him as he gets onto the brakes into the final corner, out across the line. And where's this going to put the Frenchman? Might be able to get ahead of Verstappen here. Comes across the line, and he remains in third place. Closes the gap to Sergio Perez, but it remains at 0.3 of a second. And Esteban Ocon has just come through as well to do a 30.5, so he was 0.8 slower than his teammate Ocon. He's also on a new set of the soft tyres, so difficult lap for Ocon, but he's still there in fourth place. Gasly there in third, and Alpine are looking in danger of being kind of best of the rest here. Yet to see the Aston Martins. Whoa, Ocon had a moment. God, goodness me.
Heart rate definitely raised there on the exit of turn 10. Those curves can be quite dangerous. Like we saw last year, Mick Schumacher as well.
Is that the same corner?
I think it might be the same corner. So not changed.
It was almost the same accident, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And we saw the amount that actually moved the barrier, didn't it? The concrete barrier. Yeah. Mick Schumacher's crash last year, and you know they're moving a massive concrete barrier, not just one, several of them. It's a huge impact. So Esteban will be definitely gathering his thoughts and calming down for sure on this cool down lap. As George Russell now through turn 18 on a build lap, I'm presuming, because he's not setting the world on fire in sector 1.
So 0.2 down after the middle sector.
So it wasn't a build
George Russell, no, so he is...
Lewis Hamilton, he's gone slightly quicker in sector 1.
4 thousandths up on Sergio Perez through the first third of the lap. So Russell, not on a build lap, but not actually even improving on his own personal best at the moment, despite being on a new set of the soft tyres. Comes across the line and does a 1 minute 30.2, so just over a tenth slower than he managed previously, and 8 tenths down on Sergio Perez, who's just left the pits also on a brand new set of soft tyres. Hamilton's only a tenth down on Perez after the first 2/3 of a lap, so this is a bit more encouraging for Hamilton as he comes down now towards the final corner. He and Kevin Magnussen, the only two drivers improving on the circuit at the moment, and Hamilton goes up into 4th. Again, losing quite a big chunk of time through the final sector. Lost 3 tenths in the final sector compared to Sergio Perez. So it's Perez, Verstappen, Gasly, Hamilton, Ocon, the top 5 right now. Russell, Albon, Norris, Sargent's jumped up into 9th place with his run on the soft tyres. That's quite encouraging for the American, and Charles Leclerc is 10th as it stands, but yet to go out on the soft compound of tyre. Here comes Kevin Magnussen in the Haas, out across the line, currently 18th fastest, and he goes up to 7th quickest, only 7 tenths away from Sergio Perez. So again, quick lap time coming in from one of the Haas drivers. We saw that yesterday from Hulkenberg, pinged up into sort of 4th place at one point, and he had a strong run in Bahrain during one of the sessions too, but not able to quite get the consistency. Here's Perez.
Yeah, my right mirror keeps coming down.
Okay.
Sergio Perez's right wing mirror keeps coming down as he comes across the line now to start a flying lap on the soft tyres. The reason that Hans Heyer had more DNFs than starts at Le Mans was because you could change cars in those days. So obviously his first car retires, he gets into the other car, and that one retires as well.
I mean, that's just bad luck. Did he crash them or did they just retire?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because that's bad luck. He's got worse luck than Charles Leclerc, it seems.
Yeah.
Interesting, we've not seen Alonso do much this session. He's on an out lap at the moment.
Well, Alice, Jack and I were talking about this morning, or I messaged him about it.
I replied. It was a conversation.
Reply, yeah. Aston Martin are the only team apart from Red Bull who came in today with only 5 sets of soft tyres.
They used 2 yesterday, didn't they?
So everyone else has got 6, so they must be saving the softs for qualifying, that means. So that would explain, I think, why. I think they're obviously thinking this isn't that representative this session, aren't they?
Yeah, I think Verstappen's gone out now on a set of softs, so that'll take him down to... Oh no, because he had fewer already, didn't he? Yeah, so I'm surprised he has done that, but they'll be able to get it through. I mean, they could get through the whole session on mediums, couldn't they, to be honest, at the moment, Red Bull. Perez is about to jump to the top of the times. Hulkenberg jumps up into 5th place. Perez takes a very interesting... I don't know if that's intentional or not, that final corner line from Perez, because he was nowhere near the apex, just sort of ran the kind of middle line all the way around 27.
A couple of cars getting a little bit of twitch of oversteer. I don't think it was intentional.
No. Okay, fine. He loses time.
Loses time in the last sector. But Alonso is out now, right on cue, on his soft set of tyres. So I think most teams will want a bolt of sort of set of softs on to gauge where they are for qualifying as he goes through turn 13, a 10th down to Perez in the first sector. And as he's changing all different kinds of things on his steering wheel as he's feathering the car through 17. Flat out, traffic in front of him as well, which he needs to manage as best as he can. Or hope, actually, that people get out of the way.
It's one of the McLarens, keeps to the left-hand side. Alonso's 2 tenths down on Perez after the middle sector, throws it into turn 22, and now just the flat-out blast towards the final corner. Stroll's a couple of tenths down on Alonso after the middle sector. Max Verstappen on his soft tyres has just done the fastest first sector of anybody. Alonso into the final turn may gain a little bit of time on Perez, but had a moment of his own on the exit of the final corner, and Alonso goes 3rd fastest, about half a second slower than Sergio Perez, and Verstappen is coming through the middle sector now and going quicker still. Hamilton's about to improve. Stroll goes 5th fastest in the Aston Martin. Hamilton out across the line, and he goes up into 3rd place in the Mercedes, so goes quicker than Alonso. It'll be slightly encouraging for the Mercedes team. But here comes Verstappen into the final sector.
So if Alonso gets another podium this weekend, he'll be the 6th driver in F1 history to get 100 podiums. Seeing that you guys know your facts,
don't do this.
Come on. Who are the other drivers that have got have achieved 100 podiums or more in Formula One.
So there's 5 others.
Yep.
Do you know? So if we answered, are you going to know?
I know, but only
Okay.
because I'm going to move my screen now. It's on my screen. So
Hamilton, Schumacher, Vettel, Prost, Senna.
No,
Okay, I'm going Hamilton.
not according to my notes, but
Hamilton-
one of them is wrong.
Senna's wrong. Yeah.
So Hamilton, Schumacher, Prost, Vettel. Oh, that's...
Barrichello.
Yeah, I was
No.
thinking Barrichello, but he wouldn't have had enough over the course
When
of
I
his
eventually
career.
do tell you, you're going to be like, oh, that's who it is.
Don't know, tell us.
Yeah.
He's recently, not long left F1. He's doing
Button?
NASCAR at the moment.
Button.
I got blocked by the
Raikkonen.
Aston.
Raikkonen.
Copy.
Raikkonen.
Raikkonen is the one.
Raikkonen. Wow.
Yeah, he 103.
103 podiums. He's only got like 20 wins, hasn't he, Raikkonen? But 100 odd podiums. Wow. I love that. You're bringing the fun, Alice. 14
Trying to.
minutes.
I'm trying.
Yeah, and you're achieving it to a moderate level so far. It's great. 14 minutes to go. No, seriously, this is great. This is great.
I shall take that as a compliment then, Jack.
It is. Gasly is 3/10 down in the first sector in the Alpine as he tries to
Very
get
close to the wall there.
Yeah, that was surprisingly close on the exit of 13, and then there was a load of traffic that he had to get through as well. Oscar Piastri's just gone 5th fastest. Verstappen finished his lap to do a 28.7, 3/10 quicker than Perez, 8/10 quicker than Hamilton and Alonso, and then Piastri there in 5th place, 9/10 away from Verstappen. Gasly coming through turn 22, 6/10 down now after the middle sector, and isn't actually improving on this lap now, Pierre Gasly, after that slightly scrappy exit of turn 13. Now comes up to the final corner, through the left, out across the line. And what's this going to be for Gasly? Will it be an improvement? No, it won't. Lance Stroll is improving as well. 21 wins for Raikkonen and 103 podiums. That's a good podium. Well, it's not a very good win to podium percentage, really, is it?
No,
There we go.
I mean, it's better than any of us, but...
Yeah. Well, not in Formula Renault Asia.
No,
You got a pretty
as you
good one
reminded
there,
me,
yeah.
back in the day.
Yeah. We'll start talking about Formula Renault Bark in a minute if we really want to go down memory
That
lane.
will make me feel old. That will make me feel... Oh.
Norris has just got held up by Verstappen.
It's dangerous what these guys do. They need to use a radio or something. There could have been a massive crash.
Okay, understood. We'll report now.
It was a fairly close one between Norris and Verstappen. I think Verstappen comes back alongside Norris and sticks his hand out the car and waves to apologise. Norris goes to wave back and nearly gets in the way of Alex Albon in all of that. So very busy stuff. Here's his radio.
Mate. Apologies.
Apologies, taking a sip of tea at the time, sorry. But I feel this is going to be a problem. We saw it last year in quali, and a couple of penalties were just dished out, but that's where the drivers, well, in Perez's sake, his mirror not falling down, that would definitely help, but it's such a fast circuit and cars approach so quickly. The teams really, really need to be on top of the GPS that they'll have in front of them on the pit wall or in the garage to make sure that we don't have any accidents, as Verstappen is lighting up the timing screen now, moving across onto the soft tyre.
11 minutes and 10 seconds to go. Verstappen on his second run on these softs, or second lap I should say on these softs. He's coming up into the final corner now at turn 27. Norris goes 6th fastest, so ahead of Oscar Piastri, but only by 8 thousandths of a second. So that's a pretty solid performance that from Piastri so far. Verstappen finds another 10th of a second, and he's now nearly half a second up on Sergio Perez, his teammate. 8 tenths ahead of Stroll, who's gone 3rd fastest in the Aston Martin, but Fernando Alonso is improving currently on his second lap on the soft tyres. Stroll 3rd, Hamilton 4th, Alonso 5th currently, but Alonso on a pretty solid lap. He's just coming now towards the final corner at turn 27. Turns it into the left-hander again, struggling to get it in, but comes out across the line, and Alonso goes back ahead of Stroll, but pretty much even on lap time. A 1 minute 29.483 for Alonso and a 29.509 for Stroll. So a little over 200ths separating the pair of them. Lots of you getting in touch about Tom Scrap Thistlethwaite, and he was one of the Bentley boys. I've just put a book about the Bentley boys, haven't I? I think I did the other day in the bookshop.
You should know.
Yeah, I
should have heard of this guy.
I know, yeah, I know, but I haven't read it.
Tom Scrap. Is Scrap like a nickname? It
Yeah,
can't
it
be
must
his
be.
middle name, surely.
No, it must be. And
So, Turn 8 incident involving Norris and Verstappen has been reviewed and no further investigation. Okay. Well, he was definitely impeded, but...
yeah, but he said sorry.
Yeah, okay.
That's
Fair enough. That must be that's much what you have to do these days, just say sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I think in qualifying it would probably be a different story. So yeah, Chris and Duncan and Paul getting in touch there. Andrew says, Trevor Taylor, Jim Clark's Lotus teammate. I have never heard of him in my life. Trevor Taylor.
Sounds like he's a good name for a team boss or something.
Yeah,
Trevor
or
Taylor.
like a drummer in a 70s rock band. Feels like a Trevor Taylor. So I'm thinking of Roger Taylor, aren't I? The drummer in both Queen and Duran Duran. Two different people, but same name. Anyway, never heard of Trevor Taylor. I don't think I've heard of Domenico Sciattarella, who raced in the Simtech in 1994. Not heard of him, I must say. Right, 8.5 minutes to go. Verstappen quickest, Perez second, Alonso third, Stroll fourth, Hamilton in fifth. Black and white flag for Fernando Alonso for failing to follow the race director's instructions. We saw a few of those yesterday, which were mainly pit lane entry infringements, so maybe it's that for Alonso.
I did see when he crossed the line to set his lap, he was partly across that white line coming into the pits, and that's what Verstappen was on the radio last year, wasn't he, for saying Leclerc was going over that white line. So yeah, not the first time I expect we're going to see more of this over the weekend. As you said, we've seen some already, but I expect a few more today and tomorrow.
7 minutes and 40 seconds to go. Behind those top five of Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, Stroll and Hamilton, it's the two McLarens of Norris and Piastri, 6th and 7th. Pierre Gasly is 8th fastest. 9th fastest is George Russell, only a couple of tenths off Hamilton, but Hamilton's in 5th, Russell in 9th. Joe completes the top 10. Hulkenberg, Ocon, Albon, Magnussen and Sargent are the top 15. Then it is Bottas, Leclerc, Sainz, Tsunoda, the 19 drivers. Nick de Vries won't be competing in this session as they found a problem in the power unit of the AlphaTauri, so are changing that. The Ferraris are out now on a set of soft tyres, so we will see something resembling a representative lap time from the Ferraris. Chris says, never heard of Trevor Taylor. Not old enough, you two. I'm sorry, Chris. I've heard of I think I'm reasonable on my F1 history, but for a gentleman my age, but I've never heard of Trevor Taylor.
I just want to clarify, I had heard of Trevor Taylor.
Oh, you kept quiet in the corner there because we both said no.
Just on that pit lane entry line, by the way, Alice, I have to say, sometimes I think that it's the race director's own fault. You know, what do they expect when they design a brand new circuit with a pit lane entry line on the racing line?
But the race director didn't design the pit lane entry.
Okay, but the fact of the matter is, this is not the only track. It happens in Baku's another example, where, you know, brand new circuits, what are they doing putting the pit entry line there?
But why has the line got to be so long as well?
Yeah.
There's a question. It's a very long line.
Baku, I'll let him off, because I guess when you look at it on paper, it shouldn't be on the racing line. You know what I mean? And same here, like, you should be over to the right? But it's just the kind of
take
kinks.
that shortest distance down that straight, aren't you?
Agreed. But I can see why on paper you might think it would be all right. But no, I don't disagree. Sao Paulo.
Yep, that's a really long line as well. What's with all these long lines? That's what I mean.
Powell becomes FIA president.
Yeah.
The number one thing.
Tiny pit entry line.
Yeah, pit entry lines.
I mean, they're doing it with the best intentions, obviously, because you are coming into the pits, you do want to be over on the left, and you are going to be slowing down when someone else is accelerating. So you can kind of understand it on one level, but don't put it somewhere else.
There was a whole kerfuffle yesterday. Well, not a whole kerfuffle. There was one minor incident in the World Endurance Championship race at Sebring with pit lane entry.
The hypercar, yeah.
Yeah, with pit lane entry lines. And Anthony Davidson said that it's really useful if you're in a prototype that the GT cars put their indicators on if they're coming into the pits. Apparently that's really useful. You wouldn't think it would be, but apparently it is.
So F1 cars, they need to stick their hand out like they're on a bike. I'm going in.
Yeah, that'd be great. Leclerc coming through turns 1 and 2 now. Carlos Sainz has just left the pits. Yeah, he did a build lap and Leclerc did a build lap too. So both Ferraris doing build laps. And now we're going to get a first sector split for Charles Leclerc as he heads down towards turn 13. And he's half a second down in sector 1. This is his first lap on these tyres, and as we've seen throughout the session, they'll get to go again. And the tyres seem to be able to keep up with the punishment. Carlos Sainz through sector 1 now, and he has pretty much matched Charles Leclerc. Oh, Stu G. I love Stu G. There have been 5. Oh, here's Logan Sargent, whatever.
My seat is so hot. Copy.
The seat is really hot for Logan Sargent. Charles Leclerc now coming up with the final goal. I'll wait till the Ferraris finish that before I give you this Stu G fact. He's coming up towards turn 27 now. Onto the brakes, through the left-hander, on the power, out across the line. Sainz has done pretty much the same middle sector as Leclerc as well. Leclerc goes 10th fastest in the Ferrari, 1.4 seconds away from Verstappen. Now, of course, was losing time sort of on the straight bits where maybe Ferrari's engine is still turned down. Sainz sending it in really deep into 27, out across the line, and Sainz goes quicker than Leclerc. 10th and 11th fastest for the two Ferraris. I don't think we're going to know what Ferrari can do until qualifying, to be honest.
No. Yeah, like we said, turning down engine, possibly, as we're going to see a replay in Leclerc. So he runs slightly wide, which lots of drivers do. They've tightened that corner, haven't they, this year?
Yeah.
But it clearly hasn't made much of a difference to slowing the drivers down, and that's one of those curbs that if you just hit it at the wrong angle, spit you sideways into the barrier.
2 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock. There have been 5 Taylors in Formula One, which makes it F1's most popular surname. So there you go, the most named surnamed drivers.
Can he name all the Taylors?
I don't know. I can't name any Taylor. There's been 5 in Formula One history. Andrew, who are the Taylors in Formula One history? He's got no idea. I've got no. Simon Taylor never raced in F1, did he? I don't know. The second most popular is Fittipaldi. Been 4 Fittipaldis to race in Formula One, which is fine. That's.
Yeah, we know that name.
Yeah,
Taylor.
And that's Christian Fittipaldi, Emerson Fittipaldi, Pietro Fittipaldi, and the other one. Who was the other one? Emerson. Anyway, we got 3 of them, but Taylor, I've got no idea. Not a clue. 1 minute and 23 seconds to go. Nobody on a quick lap at the moment. We'll see if the Ferraris go again after they've cooled down. Verstappen is fastest. Perez 0.6 of a second behind him. And what are you pointing at, Andrew?
The ominous thing that we were talking about yesterday. Alonso is 3rd, and he's a second slower than Verstappen. It's... I mean, I'm speechless, thankfully. Here's Joe.
What the is this guy doing, man?
Joe angry at Gasly for a little bit of traffic, but yeah, he does seem to be a second clear of the rest of the field. But that's why I said we don't know what the Ferraris have got still.
I mean, I don't think they're going to have that much. I don't think... If you're going to turn your engine down, you're going to turn it down, a decent amount to say with Ferrari's issues they're having, but I can't see them being turned down by a second, surely.
Yeah.
Surely.
No, but I'm just trying to,
liven up. Liven it up. Make it not so...
Leclerc's going again. Here he comes through sector 1. 7 seconds left on the clock. We'll see what he started his lap, so he'll finish it. And his first sector, Charles Leclerc, is 4 tenths down on Max Verstappen through the first third of the lap. Sainz is on another push lap now as well, as is Yuki Tsunoda, who's currently 19th fastest. Nico Hülkenberg, the first driver to take the checkered flag. Through the middle sector now comes Leclerc, 4 tenths down after sector 1. He's now coming up to the left-hander of 22, and he's 6 tenths down on Verstappen, so he's finding a bit of time, and he's just got the chance of mixing it with the Alonsos and the Strolls and the Hamiltons of this gang. Here he comes now towards the final corner at 27, 206 miles an hour, as he really has to fight the car around that final corner, out across the line, and he nearly gets in the mix. 6th fastest, ahead of the McLarens at least, 1.1 seconds away from Verstappen at the top of the times. Just Carlos Sainz to finish a lap now. But that does suggest that if Ferrari can turn their engine up a little, they can get it sort of ahead of the Astons, but that
assuming they haven't already done it.
Well, it's fair. And again, Sainz struggling for grip in the final corner, across the line, and he ends the session 10th fastest. So the end of the session is Verstappen quickest, 2nd for Sergio Perez, 3rd for Fernando Alonso, 4th is Lance Stroll, 9 tenths between Verstappen 1st and Alonso 3rd. Stroll 4th, Hamilton 5th, Leclerc, Norris, Piastri, Gasly and Sainz the top 10. Russell, Joe, Hülkenberg, Ocon and Albon the top 15. Sargent, Magnussen, Bottas, Tsunoda, the 19 drivers to set a lap time. Nick de Vries not setting a lap time because of a power unit change, so he didn't manage to make it out at all on track in this 3rd practice session. Right, 2.5 hours till qualifying, and well, this is where your expert opinion analyst comes in on Max Verstappen.
I mean, it was when we saw his time on the hard tyre.
Yeah.
That's when we knew this guy has really got it. He had a stomach bug, a bit of a rest after his stomach bug, so he wasn't at the track on Thursday. But clearly he's got over that now, because his time on hard tyres was so impressive. 6 tenths ahead of his teammate. Way clear of the field at the moment is Max and Red Bull. So hopefully we're going to get some challenges for him in the next session. But going slightly off topic of the Red Bulls, some data from free practice 2 of throttle percentages, so maximum throttle.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, here we go. We're talking about Ferrari turning down their engine. But Aston Martin was 73.2% of the lap at full throttle, whereas Ferrari were only at 68.1. So that could suggest that maybe they're struggling a little bit for grip. Yeah. Not necessarily having turned their engine down, but Red Bull were 71.6. So just a little bit behind the Astons, but yeah, that Red Bull's working well. That Red Bull is certainly working very well, as everyone's lining up now to do their practice starts. The last chance of the weekend they'll get to line up on the grid and do a practice start.
Dennis Taylor, Henry Taylor, John Taylor, Mike Taylor and Trevor Taylor, the 5 Taylors.
There was always going to be a Mike Taylor. For some reason that was in my head, there was going to be a Mike.
He did 2 F1 races. Trevor Taylor did the most on 29. Henry Taylor did 11 from 1959 to 1961. Wilson Fittipaldi was the Fittipaldi I couldn't remember. Thanks for all your chat over the free practice sessions. We'll be back with qualifying in a couple of hours. Andrew Benson, briefly, your thoughts on the 5 1/3 is going to be fantastic.
Yes.
I'm not being sarcastic.
No, that's exactly it. Between Aston Martin, Mercedes and Ferrari, it's really, really hard to call. And actually McLaren look like they might be almost in that fight.
And don't forget Alpine.
Almost. And Alpine not far behind as well. So that's thrilling. The front, though, I think we know who's going to be 1st and 2nd on the grid.
I hope there's a shock. Yeah. I hope there's a shock for everybody.
Well, we'll find out in 2.5 hours' time. Join us then, BBC Sport website. And this has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. Max Verstappen quickest, Sergio Perez 2nd, Red Bull 1-2. But again, Fernando Alonso is the best of the rest, but he's going to have a fight on his hands, I think, come qualifying a little bit later on. It's all about the fight for third, and we'll see you then. Yep, and Max Verstappen was fastest again. He won the opening race of the season in Bahrain 2 weeks ago, and he was quickest in this free practice session quite comfortably, to be honest. With us on commentary this weekend is Alice Powell, former runner-up in the W Series Championship a few years ago. And Alice, Verstappen looking very, very strong. Yeah,
I mean, considering he had a poor tummy a couple of days ago, he's suddenly got over that now, but so strong. Both Red Bulls are way clear of the rest of the field, so hopefully something dramatic will happen and the rest of the field will bunch up. But Max, he's just in a league of his own, Jack.
The fight for third is going to be really entertaining, though, isn't it? And I know that's sort of not the situation we want to be in, but Alonso in the Aston Martin finished third last time out in Bahrain, and you got Hamilton not looking too bad in the end, finishing in fifth, but he's a bit dissatisfied with the Mercedes team at the moment, sort of says they didn't listen to him about which way to, or how was the best way to build the car. Ferrari are struggling, so Charles Leclerc was sixth, so the fight for third and the sort of best of the rest is incredibly close.
Well, yeah, that's 5/10 separating from P4 down to P16. So
wow.
We're going to have a nice little battle there, potentially. It's going to be interesting to see who can just claw their way out of Q1 and then into Q2 and so on. So there is battles that's going to be down through the field, but it's looking like at the moment Red Bull have it secured at the top.
And with that Red Bull fight, when Mercedes was sort of dominating all the time, the question was always Hamilton versus Rosberg or Hamilton versus Bottas. Can Bottas stop him? Can Rosberg stop him? Sergio Perez, Max Verstappen's Red Bull teammate, does he have a shot? He took pole position in Saudi Arabia last year.
Yeah, he took pole, as you said, last year and looked super strong, but just he's a bit up and down, isn't he, Sergio? Max is always there and consistent, but Sergio just doesn't seem to be there. He's sort of quite up and down, so Red Bull will be pushing him, but at the moment they're pretty comfortable with a 1-2, so they won't desperately need to push him hard. But certainly I feel that that they will like him to up his game a little bit more.
Yeah, well, qualifying gets underway at 5 to 5 this afternoon on the BBC Sport website.